masters of ceremonies, distinguished judges, questioner, and timekeepers. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hey, I have a fear of heights. Let's not go skydiving for our summer break. If your friend tells you that, you would respect his or her feelings and look for other options, right? But what if your friend tells you this? Hey, I have a fear of vomiting. I can't go to that drinking party. Most of you would think that's just some petty excuse to not go to that drinking party, right? I mean, everyone hates vomiting. Well, that is how people around me had treated my condition, my extreme fear of vomit. With no one taking me seriously, I closed the door to my heart. And I decided to never open it to anyone else again, even to my parents. For almost a decade, I have suffered from emetophobia, or 嘔吐恐怖症, the extreme irrational fear of vomit. However, after a particular event, I realized that this illness deserves to be taken more seriously, as everyone here is affected and connected to emetophobia. So today, I'm here to spread proper collective awareness of emetophobia and the ways we can alleviate the patient's secondary emotional damage from this phobia. And I hope that sharing my story will inspire all of us here to start opening each other's door to our hearts, even if it's just 5 centimeters. First of all, emetophobia is a severe, multifaceted form of chronic PTSD, which people mainly develop during their childhood, usually after a traumatic experience with vomiting. But anyone, including your potential friend, significant other, your future children, or even your future self, can develop emetophobia at any time of their lives, like after a bad case of norovirus or seeing someone repeatedly vomiting. But of course, when I surveyed 120 people on emetophobia, more than 80% had stated that they never even heard about it before. However, at the same time, 42 of my survey takers said that they have emetophobia, while 26 answered maybe. So over half of these 120 people have emetophobia, but the majority has never even heard about this illness before. So I wonder, what would happen if we are unaware of this illness for the rest of our lives? For me, it started when I was 11, when I suddenly threw up during class. I had my first panic attack, trembling with fear. As my homeroom teacher escorted me out of the classroom, I heard my friends laughing, and I even heard someone whisper, "Oh my gosh, she froze at her own puke." After that day, I closed the door to my heart, feeling ashamed. And 9 years later, when we had a family dinner, and my cousin violently threw up on me, I was out of my chair, covering my eyes and ears. Everyone just stared at me as they trembled from the panic attack. Eventually, I mustered up the courage and opened up to my mom in tears. But then, my mom casually told me, "Oh, Ellie, no one likes being sick or seeing vomit. You're just overreacting." And just like that, the person I trusted the most closed the door to my heart that I worked so hard to open. So then I forced myself to never talk about my emetophobia ever again, to protect myself from all of this humiliation. But why did this happen? Because I didn't know about emetophobia at the time. if we are unaware, if we let this happen to potential patients, it's the same thing as silencing those who suffer. And in the long term, patients would also be terrified over anything from sharing foods to having a family. And to avoid the slightest possibility of facing vomit, patients would also jeopardize their societal reputations when considering the power-harassing drinking culture in Japan. Consequently, my life became a living hell. I became paranoid about everything, from food expiration dates to using public bathrooms and drinking alcohol. I would almost pass out from all anxiety every day. But with that being said, emetophobia itself isn't the primary source of our anxiety. It's the stress and sorrow of other people not willing to let us open our doors, not believing that we have emetophobia. Like, how would you feel if your friend forces you to step into a tall building when you have a fear of heights? As someone who lived through the shame and loneliness of emetophobia, I would like to say that we are suffering. So we need your help. Just hear us out and not shut our doors from the start. After many years of suffering alone with emetophobia behind my door, I opened up to my good friend Hayate about my condition. Yes, Hayate, everyone's favorite guy from Rico ESS, famous for his original line stamps and his love and kindness towards others. And he listened to my story saying, "Hey Ellie, if anything triggers you in any way, please don't hesitate to tell me, and the ways I can help." With Hayate now being aware of how severe emetophobia is, he can do little things like looking out for drunk people at bars, avoiding saying insensitive words like, "You're just overreacting," and not pressuring me to excessively drink at drinking parties. And of course, his words gave me all the hope that I needed. Words and emotional support may not have the power to cure emetophobia per se, as emetophobia will always be with us, like it or not. But by knowing that there's at least someone who would listen to us and help open the doors to our hearts instead of closing them, we can finally step forward with our lives. So starting from today, why not help support these patients just by remembering to listen to them and not make fun of them? And if they open their doors, even if it's just for 5 centimeters, help them open it even wider by hearing them out. So please, don't ignore our 5 centimeters. Thank you.
Now we have a question and answer session. First, from the judge. Mr. Pascal, please.
Thank you very much for sharing your emotional journey. My first question would be, how widespread do you think the particular problem of emetophobia is?
How widespread on like a macro or a micro level?
Macro level.
A macro level? I think it's pretty widespread. It's just people are not aware of it. Society is not aware of it. The medical field is not aware of it. I think there's millions actually suffering from it. People just don't know that they have it. So I can tell you that it's very widespread, but there's very little data on it. So
how could someone check and tell that they have emetophobia? What should I do if I want to make sure?
Well, there's at least some data provided by some organization on emetophobia in England, the British states. There's a checklist for it, and if it really affects your everyday lives, like seeing like a pile of vomit on the train or at the train stations, or hearing someone, even like a little child, saying, "I'm not feeling well," or "기못해와르이," those little things, if it really triggers any panic attacks, or let's see, you actually see someone do that, and then you can't eat for several days, like how it happens to me, it really is like a red flag that you have emetophobia.
Okay. So this emetophobia is really a PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder?
A form of it, but a very severe form of it.
Do you think that we tend to look at PTSD as being only related to major trauma and we don't really understand sort of what I would loosely call everyday PTSD?
I believe so. We tend to over dramatize